The Russian President Vladimir Putin has delivered a bone-chilling warning to Ukraine, signaling Russia's readiness to escalate the conflict with unprecedented missile capabilities. The Kremlin's latest message is pretty unambiguous. Any Ukrainian long-range strikes inside the Russian territory will be met with swift and devastating retaliation. Take a look at this report.
On 21st November, Russia launches its brand new Oreshnik missile at Dnipro. The missile, capable of carrying nuclear warheads, delivers a devastating strike. CCTV footage captures fire raining from the skies. Western experts who are analyzing this new Russian technology say the missile's unique ability to release multiple warheads across a wide area, making it both unpredictable and lethal.
As the thing goes through space, those thrusters will fire to turn the bus so that it can drop warheads in different locations. And that's basically what we saw. Is the bus carried probably 6 warheads, and each of those 6 warheads carried 6 submunitions.
This multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle technology is similar to ICBMs, this significantly enhancing its destructive potential. While the new Russian missile's core technology is not entirely new, its operational execution marks a dangerous evolution in warfare. It can reach most European capitals within minutes. Speaking in Astana, Kazakhstan, Russian President Vladimir Putin has called the Oreshnik unstoppable. Putin warns that his missile could target decision-making centers in Kyiv next, sending a clear signal to the West.
Let me remind you once again how the Oreshnik works, since you've asked. Dozens of warheads, homing warheads, attack the target at a speed of 10 Mach, which is about 3 kilometers per second, 1.86 miles per second. The temperature of the striking elements reaches 4,000 degrees. If my memory serves me right, the temperature on the surface of the sun is 5.5 to 6,000 degrees. Therefore, everything that is in the epicenter of the explosion is divided into fractions, into elementary particles essentially, turned into dust.
Ukraine, which is already under intense Russian missile attacks, is urgently asking for advanced air defense systems from its Western allies.
Today, Mark and I discussed the available response capabilities, the necessary strengthening of Ukraine's air defense. I named the specific air defense systems that we need, which can work. Our partners have these air defense systems.
Boasting that Russia produces missiles at 10 times the rate of NATO nations, Putin underscores Moscow's growing focus on advanced weaponry, highlighting the shifting balance in the ongoing war. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of where this war in Ukraine is headed at the moment, we are joined by Dr. Gilbert Doktorov, who's an international affairs analyst, who's an author and also a historian, and he's joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Dr. Doktorov, Joe Biden at the moment is counting out his final days as the lame duck president in the White House. But what do you think is the thinking behind this strategy of turning up the temperature in the Ukrainian war by supplying more long-range missiles to the Ukrainians to strike targets inside the Russian territory? Because the Russians are very clear, if Ukraine uses these Western long-range weapons, they would hit back with much greater force.
I think that Biden's purpose is to hold the line in Ukraine, to prop up the armed forces and the government there till he leaves office, to ensure his legacy. I think he and the people around him know very well that the days of the Kyiv regime are numbered. He would prefer, however, if the collapse comes on the watch of Mr. Trump and not on his watch. What he is now supplying to Ukraine and authorizing to use against the interior parts of the Russian Federation are pinpricks. They will not change the balance of the war. They will distract the public from the progress that the Russian army is making daily in beating back the Ukrainian forces, moving the line of confrontation closer to the Dnieper River. So it's a distraction. And as I say, for him, for his pride, it is to shift the blame for the collapse of Ukraine from his administration to the incoming Trump administration.
Interesting. And also, what is in your assessment is the change that this new Russian missile, Oreshnik, has brought about? Now, since the end of the Soviet Union, in Western capitals, there was a feeling that qualitatively the Western weapons perhaps were better. Has that reality now changed, with Russia having exhibited what the Oreshnik missile can actually accomplish on the battlefield?
The balance changed in 2018 when, in March of that year, Putin made a State of the Nation speech and rolled out the various new, unrivaled, unparalleled weapon systems, strategic weapon systems that Russia had developed. And he said at the time that this was a change in history. In the 70 years of Soviet Union, Russian arms were always years behind the United States and other Western countries in technological development. This time, in 2018, when these new weapons, including a forerunner of the Oreshnik that was rolled out a week ago, these new weapon systems put the Russians a generation ahead of the United States. A generation here would mean 10 years.
You know, it's interesting that you say that this has put the Russians a generation ahead. But the advisors of Joe Biden, who are advising Joe Biden as to how he needs to proceed in this war in the next 2 months till he ends his days at the White House, do you think they're telling him this? What do you think they're telling him?
Well, they should have told him that this was coming. Well, they should have told his predecessor, Donald Trump, that this was coming in 2018. But unfortunately, U.S. intelligence has been asleep at the wheel for the last 14 years or so. They have very few competent people who speak Russian, know Russian well enough, and who are working within the federal government as opposed to being outsourced independent commercial suppliers of intelligence. So the United States intelligence on things like this new development have been woefully weak since before 2018. In fact, going back to the period immediately following the attack on the World Towers, when the U.S. government reoriented its intelligence staff and interests to the Middle East. Therefore, the United States has been blindsided. Mr. Trump was not properly briefed, and Mr. Biden was not properly briefed.
All right, interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Gilbert Doctorow, for joining us and getting us that perspective there, sir.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.